Welcome back to Just Scrap Radio on BJPenn.com. I'm your host, Cole Sheldon. Episode 160, we got a good lineup ahead of the PFL and UFC fights. But first up, we're actually joined by Sean Merriman, the former NFL player, and now the guy that's running Lights Out Fight League. It's obviously Sean drafted 12th overall in the 2005 NFL, drafted a pretty good career. Then while he was in the NFL, he always liked combat sports. We kind of talked about that. And then we talked about his promotion and how he started Lights Out and kind of everything that went along with that. But a very good chat with Sean about the promotion and kind of how they're hoping to be that number one feeder league to the UFC in the very near future. We're then going to be joined by Liz Carmouche to preview her PFL 4 fight against Kana Watanabe. Liz, the former, I guess still is the Bellator champ, fighting in that PFL tournament, coming off a decision win over Juliana Velasquez. Then she gets another rematch, which was kind of weird for her. She thinks signing with PFL, or with the merger, maybe she get new matchups, which their first fight is Velasquez, who she fought twice already, and then now she's rematching Watanabe, who she knocked out in 35 seconds back in 2021. So really good chat with Liz about that fight. And then we're going to talk to Talia Santos about her fight against Jenna Bishop. Talia, a really good debut, first round submission win over Joanne, Joanne. She's one of the front runners to win the whole flyweight tournament. So really good chat to Talia about what this win and kind of what winning that PFL title would mean for her. And then we close things out talking to Brady Heastand to preview his fight against Garrett Armfield. Brady finally coming back, and he really likes this matchup against Garrett Armfield. He hasn't fought since April of last year when he knocked out Danelle Backrell in the third round. Had some issues. Unfortunately, had to pull out, and now he's finally ready to get back in action against Garrett Armfield. And he thinks this is a fight that he thinks people forget that he's super young still. He's only 25, and that he's developed a lot in that year off. He thinks he's really ready to show it and show that he's ready for a top 15 guy at bantamweight. But be sure to share the show, subscribe, and tune in next week for another episode of Just Scrap Radio.
It's always a little bit crazy, but in a good way.
All right, we're joined by Sean Merriman to talk about his promotion, Lights Out Extreme Fighting, and just kind of how he got into the sport. Sean, how's it going, man?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. First up, for people who don't know, former NFL player, I grew up a huge Bills fan, still a Bills fan, so pretty cool talking to you. So, when did you kind of start liking combat sports? What was kind of your first introduction, and how did you know that you want to be involved, after your career?
Well, I started training in the mid 2000s. My first day training in MMA was with Randy Couture, back in 2006 or 2007 during the off season. But I did it only to really help me in football. I didn't do it I didn't think I was going to fall into the sport the way I am. And then what happened is I started to train with everybody. I mean, from the Chuck Liddells, the T. Ortiz, I was just around the sport. A lot of those guys would come to the Chargers game. So that was my way into, combat sports. And then when I retired, man, I got straight into TV, TV broadcasting. I was at the NFL Network for a couple of years, Fox Sports a couple of years, ESPN a couple of years, and back to Fox Sports. I also was at the launch of WWE Network. So I understood the TV business more than anything and how TV works. So it was a combination of knowing how TV production works and also loving the sport of MMA, man. And I ended up launching Lights Out Extreme Fighting. And, we just launched Lights Out Sports TV, which is my own multi-sport streaming service. So we're live now on Lights Out Sports TV.
And there was a couple times you were rumored to fight. Was that ever a regret, or that you never end up stepping in there? Or you find that you never fought?
No. I think, well, let me tell you what happened. So what almost happened, I almost signed a deal with Bellator. I think back in 2016 or somewhere around there. And, I was talking to Scott Coker for a while before I even really got more and more into the business of MMA. The money just wasn't there. And so I think that at the time, they didn't see how big a former athlete, somebody that played in the NFL, now transitioning to and kind of going into to fighting. I don't think that they really saw the upside and how to really bank on that, right? On the pay-per-view side, on the marketing side, and the money just wasn't there. So I said, look, it's not even about the fight. And that's one thing, being a former athlete my entire life, it's never the game, right? It's never the fight. It's the training. It's the leading up
Mhm.
to it, right? Putting your body through, a 8, 12, 10, 12-week camp and all the other stuff I had going on. I wasn't willing, unless the money was there, I wasn't willing to make it shut down. I was going to walk away from it because I had so much other stuff going on. So it had to be worthwhile for me to fight. The fight was never the question. I mean, you can go fight a guy in the back alley, man. It's just, for me, it's just a fight. It's not, anything special, but it's the training, getting prepared, and what you have to walk away from everything else I had going on. It had to have been worth it. So when Bellator really didn't step up to the plate, I just moved on, and I ended up working with Bellator as an ambassador for almost 2 years, working with Scott Coker and working with the whole Bellator team. And so that's how I understood, business side of it and venue deals, production, just everything, man, because I was around it for a couple of years.
And then when did you kind of figure out that you wanted to have your own promotion? And you obviously launched Lights Out.
In 2019. And how that happened is when we launched, we originally was on Fox Sports West and Prime Ticket, and we came in right after the UFC had left not too long before to ESPN. And so they gave me a shot over at Fox Sports West and Prime Ticket, and we knocked out the park, man. Our first fight we had out the gate tied Anaheim Ducks in viewership. Like, it was insane. And so we went to like 10, 12 different regions of the country, and then we got struck with the pandemic. Then we ended up going to football for a couple of years, and now we're at my streaming platform, Lights Out Sports TV, which is a free ad-supported streaming service. We're on Roku and Amazon, with the Amazon Fire, Apple TV, LG TVs, any major TV platform. Lights Out Sports TV is on right now.
I was going to talk about that later, but I guess talk about right now is, when did that kind of idea of having your own streaming service to host the fights kind of come into play, rather than trying to get like a Fight Pass or a different broadcaster to take it on?
Yeah, I saw the way the industry was going, and no shot at nobody else, but I'm not going to sit back and let anybody else dictate what they seem valuable or not. Mm-hmm. And I'm not just talking about me. I think there's quality content, quality promotions out there that do a good job. But if a streaming service only see it as valued at this, right? It's just that I know what I bring to the table, and I'm not willing to give that up unless someone's really going to show the value. And then two, it was for me, it was almost time, right? As you see on there now, World Poker Tour is on there, Glory Kickbox is on there, Swerve Combat that carries like 15 different combat promotions. Chess is on there. I think we got Speed Visions coming on. So your motorsports, Outdoor America be on there this week as well, which your fishing, hunting. So it was a combination of me understanding how the streaming business was going, and kind of getting ahead of the curve and saying, man, I know how to build this thing. I've been around it long enough, and I got the outreach, the influence, and the relationships to build this thing. We just had our first fight a couple Saturdays ago live, and we had almost 20,000 people watching. We just launched 3.5 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And so that shows that this thing got real legs, and we will make a lot of noise in the industry, and we're providing a lot of value to all those content partners that's on there.
And you guys are doing quite a few events. You're already back with your next one next Saturday, and like you have Jared Vanderaa on the card, like former UFC fighter. So like, how much does that help, having a guy like Jared kind of stabilize the promotion, where it's like a guy that just got covered in the UFC wants to go there instead of like the other kind of promotions around?
It's big for us, and I'll tell you why. I got into this space because I wanted to provide a platform to help more guys get to the UFC. Like, I know that there's some very good other very, very good promotions out there that's been around a lot longer than us. Right now, our fights are still airing on Fubo, Bally's, Amazon Freevee, MSG, BN Sports coming up. We got tons of distribution, so we're pretty much everywhere. But I know that giving these guys the opportunity to get to that platform, right, get to the UFC, because we're getting a lot of viewership. I mean, people, I talk frequently with Dana, and everybody knows what we got going on. So it's not like a secret. And guys know now that if they come fight for us, they got a real shot at being looked at. And that's what this whole thing is about, man. If we can, for me, that's success. If we can get as many fighters coming from us to the UFC. That is a massive, massive win for in my eyes, and the way we came into this business.
All the events so far have just been in California. Like, is that still the goal, just to kind of be in California, or is there plans to like get out to other states or different places?
Yeah, no, we're definitely going to get out of state. It's just that how we've been set up. We've been fortunate being in Long Beach, right? Because we got fighters coming up from San Diego, Irvine, OC to LA, and a little bit up north. So it's kind of central. So when you have the fights in the central location like that, it's been helpful. But this next one we got June 15th in San Diego at Casino Palma. This one's blowing everything out the water. This one's it's an outside fight at night, which is going to be pretty cool. We had a fight there last year. As you mentioned, we got Jared on there, but this main event, man, with Tommy Aaron, who's our guy, our champion right now, and Jordan Bailey. Jordan Bailey is a big local superstar down in San Diego. That one's going to be a matchup. Tommy Aaron is coming off of a big win over at BKFC, and so he's back with us now. And yeah, this card is loaded, man. And what's kind of cool is every single fight that we've had, because we're being so consistent now with every 4 to 6 weeks. And hopefully I'm looking at sometime toward the end of the year or beginning of 2025, having 2 a month. Because we're getting so frequent now, we're having fighters to reach out to us, not all over the country, all over the world, because we got distribution in other countries now. So that to me is where we see the most growth at, is fighters, man, just trying to get on cards now. We're having 14 to 17 fights sometime in the night.
That kind of was my next question, was like, has it been a lot easier than getting fighters? So I imagine at first you're kind of the new kid in block. They're like, why would I fight for you guys when there's other known kind of regional shows? Like, has it been a lot easier for you guys then to kind of fill out these cards and even like maybe turn some guys down and say like, hey, we'll get you on the next one?
Yeah, it's completely different than it was a year and a half, 2 years ago. I'll tell you that, man. It's night and day. And obviously, because I played NFL, people know who I am, but they didn't know so much of the promotion and what we do. And so now that, before we left football live anyway, we were top 5 most watched at Football Sports, and that's something to say, because BKFC's up there, which has been around a lot longer than us, and some other, great promotions, and top 5 in sports, not in combat sports, in sports, which is soccer and everything else. So that's to me personally, that says a lot for us to have those kind of jumps. And we got so many things. Like we have these, I'm launching these tech gloves, right? We got chips in the gloves that can measure speed, power punch, G-force. I partner with a company called Shot Tracker. So right now, algorithm is getting built so data can fly up on the screen, so you can see how hard a guy's getting hit, or if that punch was a straight punch or a jab or a hook or uppercut. I mean, we're getting this thing, as far as data, so nailed down and make it accurate, and we want this data released instantly. So when people watch our fights, man, they're going to be watching our fights a lot differently than they've ever have.
Is that something, do you think like the other promotions might end up taking, or is that something you guys have like a hold on, or like with what? Because that seems like pretty cool. Like, it's like people watching like F1 or whatever, when they show like the speed on the screens, like what kind of caused you to want to do that?
Yeah. I mean, we're open to having other organizations use it. I mean, no doubt about that. Why would we create something like that just for us? We want people out there we want the idea of watching combat sports to change how people watch the sport in general. We know that that's one way to do it, but also too, this data is going to be used for a lot of the sports betting. We know that that's a part of our business, and how if we can get this data accurate, we know that's going to be a big deal. I partner with IC360. So right now we're going through the compliant process for us to get through the sports betting with, I think, close to 20 states. And so that's next up for us, man. But this is, really, let's call it since the pandemic. Because anything before the pandemic, we didn't really get a chance to do much. But you talk about 2 years, man. I mean, to have these amount of jumps, this amount of viewership, the sports betting, the tech gloves, the Lights Out tech gloves, in 2 years, man. And now launching Lights Out Sports TV, it's unprecedented. And I bust my ass. Don't get me wrong. I work like an animal, but I'm fortunate too, because you can't do any of this stuff without the fans watching and people coming up by. Our fights are sold out. I mean, even standing, you can't even get in there without the fire marshals at this point, because people are just showing up. And I've had times we had 75 to 100 people outside waiting that we couldn't even let in anymore. And so when you have things like that happen, man, you can only be appreciative. But I'm not going to stop at this thing, and I want to just keep going as high as I can go and push as hard as I can go and keep going.
I was just saying, like, it's been building up pretty good over the past 2 years. Like, is it surreal, like, how big you've gotten the promotion in, like, such a short amount of time? Or did you think it would always kind of get this big with kind of your name, your background, everything?
I think it was a combination of things, man. Like, even back when I was playing, I was always around the sport. Like, I was always around. So I knew, first of all, from me being at some of the bigger networks, my relationships of producers, directors, engineers, you name it, right? So I knew the production side of things immediately. That's one thing I knew more than anything else. And then also, too, getting a chance to be around Bellator, watching how they ran, their shows and what they did with venues and everything else. And, so I've been around this thing, working with WWE. I was working a lot with WWE. I hosted WrestleMania when they launched the WWE Network. So I've been around for a long time. And so that's why I felt extremely confident that we would be able to kind of jump in this space and make some noise. And then also, too, last but not least, we got a big following. For an organization that's just starting off, really kind of how we are. We got a really a strong fan base of, maybe it's a combination of me playing in the NFL and then also, too, me being around. If you look at some of the media and articles, there's articles written about me and being around MMA 15, 16 years ago. And so I think it was very, and trust me, more than anything, the MMA community is they could be rough, right? Mm-hmm. And the fan base, and you could be an outsider if they don't really like you. And so I think my credit has been built with the MMA fan base and being around it long enough. And so it was a combination of a lot. But what we're planning on doing, man, over these next 12 months is going to be it's going to be never been done before at this capacity. Launching Lights Out Sports TV, being able to have national, international distribution immediately is going to catapult us to be able to be seen by everybody, right? Because distribution, there's some really good promotions and organizations out here. People don't know about them because they have no distribution, mm-hmm. right? And so that part for us to be allowed to have all this distribution to be seen everywhere is really going to take us where we want to go.
Just two more things. If fighters do want to get on your cards, like, how would they kind of go about reaching out, or is it just like you guys find them, or how does that kind of work?
Yeah, our matchmaker Antonio Jimenez, his all of his information, Lights Out XF, right? Reach out, Lights Out XF. Our matchmaker Antonio is there. We get DMs every day, and I get a chance to see that, which is pretty cool. Because like I said before, it was not like that 2 years ago, man. It was like, I don't know. We know Sean Murray played football, but who is this Lights Out, extreme fighting deal? And, a lot of coaches, managers, stuff like that on the fence 2 years ago. And it's not like that anymore. So we're looking for the best up and comers there is in this sport. And we know we got a big enough platform to get them seen. You can ask any fighter that's ever fought for us about how we move and how they're treated. Because obviously me being a former athlete, man, that is very, very important to me. I know these guys. I've trained. I've been in fight camps. I've jumped in fight camps for a week or so with other guys, really just to stay in shape. And so I understand the grind that these guys put their bodies through. So we always want to make sure they're taken care of. So you ask any fighter, man, who's come over to Lights Out Extreme Fight and how they've been treated and how we ran things and how things are going. And in the most part, man, everybody knows that we're next up. We are. And We want to be that number one feeder, man. We want to be producing the best quality of fighters that this sport have to offer to get them to the UFC.
You kind of mentioned there, but just the final thing I had. What is kind of that long-term goal for you guys in the future? Like what is that? It doesn't be like within a year or two, but like what, like 5 years, 8 years down the line? Like how big do you kind of see this going?
Well, it's twofold to this. So with Lights Out Sports TV, right? We become an aggregator to all these sports, right? Soon we'll have some of the other bigger streaming services. We're in talks with very big guys to give us their channel, right? Give us their sports, even though they got movies and sitcoms and all that stuff. So we want to be an aggregator to all the sports. The other side is we want to be an incubator to tech. We want to be an incubator to AI. We want to be an incubator. You know, I'm going to be trying out some overlays, some game looking overlays. It's going to tie into the tech gloves, and we want to be very creative, very fan engagement oriented. And we want to be cool, man. We want to try some stuff, and I'm not afraid to fail. You know, whether people think I'm crazy or not, the next few things I'll do. I'm not afraid to fail, but if it works out and it pans out and the fans love it, it could change the way that people watch combat sports. And I'm not just talking about the tech gloves, but a lot of this other stuff we're going to introduce here. And so that's where, and obviously distribution. We have to be seen all over the world. That's one thing that I focus on. You know, with this fan engagement tech. And distribution, and then keep having as many fights as we can. I want to get to 2 fights a month. That's where, if it's not at the end of 2024, beginning of 2025, we want to get to 2 fights a month and keep giving these guys opportunity, man. I want to look up and say, hey, we put 10 guys in the UFC this past year. That's a win for us. That's a big win in my book. So we got some work to do, and we'll do it. But that's a win for us.
Well, Sean, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much for doing this.
You got it, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right. We're joined by Liz Carmouche ahead of her PFL fight on June 13th. Liz, how's it going?
Great. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Like, obviously a bit different for you fighting in PFL after the merger. Just kind of want to start there. When all that was going on, like, what's kind of going through your head? Because you don't really know when you're fighting next, or like kind of the whole future of Bellator and everything. Like, what kind of was going through your head during that time?
Yeah, I think, I talked for a while before the merger actually happened about my suspicions that looked like Bellator is going to get bought out by PFL. And to me, it seems so promising. One, just for when you think about like your career, the idea of working towards a second belt and being able to hold one just by way of just businesses collaborating, that sounds super appealing. I didn't really have insecurities about what might happen with PFL. If anything, it just highlighted some better possibilities, knowing that we would have a set season of competition, not like, because especially for me, I go away for fight camps, away from my family. So I don't know. And it's like a last minute, one day I'm like, hey, I'm going to take my son to school. And the next day I'm like, no, sorry, dude, I'm going to go across the country to go train for fights, and it just happens on a whim. And the nice thing about PFL is, the season, so you can schedule everything out and kind of get things in order with much more preparation. Really helps my family life. So.
And then after the merger, you saw some Bellator fighters stay with Bellator. You saw some like yourself going to the tournament. Was going to the tournament like always something you want to do, or is that something PFL asked you to do? Like, how did that kind of come together?
It was a little bit of both. I definitely had the intrigue of wanting the appeal of PFL. And like I said, being able to hold a belt in another organization, that seems super appealing. And of course, the prospect of getting the $1 million, just so many great things that seemed appealing about PFL. I really wanted to be able to do that merge. And then when Bellator was bought out by PFL, they gave us the option of being able to do it. So for me, it was a no-brainer.
Is it a bit frustrating though that your first 2 fights are rematches, where like you think like, oh, you go to a new organization, it might be some new blood you fought, and here you are fighting girls you've already fought before?
I mean, the Kana fight definitely makes sense to me for a rematch, right? That's one. I feel like if you see all her successes and everything she's done correctly, I feel like I'm the only one that kind of really caught her off guard, right? So I feel like given another opportunity, which we're going to have, it's going to play out differently. We'll get to see a different outcome. But as far as the one with Velasquez, that definitely came as a surprise to my mind. Like, we've done this over and over and over. So, and when I thought about the tournament and thought about the possibilities for who the matchups could be, for whatever reason, Velasquez just didn't even pop in my brain as being a possibility. So that was the first draw I got. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. She fights for Bellator. Whoops. I guess I just forgot. And with Kana, it makes sense because I felt like we were destined to rematch. And then 2, because as far as the points go, ultimately we're both at last, tied in last. So only one of us can come out victorious to be able to move and work our way up the ranks. So it makes sense in that sense.
Do you even take anything away from that first fight? Like, just with how quickly it was, like, do you look back on stuff just because it was only 35 seconds? Like, there wasn't a whole lot there?
Yeah, I don't feel like I can really use that as training footage in preparation. I really have to look at the other fights where she's gone the distance, whether it be to decision or it's a finish at the end of like later into the rounds. I definitely think I can't use the fight that we had just because it was so brief and there wasn't enough there to be able to assess and apply for the future.
Do you still view it as a rematch though? Like, even though it was that short and like you didn't really get to experience a whole lot of her in there?
No, exactly. I think because it was so brief, I definitely don't view it as a rematch. In my mind, the only aspect that's a rematch is that I've seen her at different fights since then, right? Like I was when she fought Alima Lane McFarland, I was there watching Alima and watching her trying to figure out who the potential next contender would be to be able to defend my belt against. So I was there, and then I was able to talk to her before that. We were both warming up in the same room leading up to our first PFL fight. So we definitely kind of like keep matching and mixing into each other. So rematch in that way, just as far as personality wise and being familiar with each other, yes, but stylistically, as far as the experience in the cage, not at all.
With this one, like with PFL, just having to fight so soon, like do you change the way you train or like how you fight in there, just having to be healthy and be able to fight like 6, 8 weeks again later?
No, not at all. I'm that person that is back in the gym the next morning after the fight anyway. That's just kind of been my thing is I always go back in, I do cardio, do some strength and conditioning training. So that hasn't changed. Now I just have a focal point every single time when I come back. So honestly, it kind of makes it easier. So instead of coming back just to work on my own evolution or helping one of my training partners get ready for a fight, I'm coming back immediately with the intent of what I'm going to do next in the tournament. So that's awesome for me.
How do you kind of see this one playing out then with you and Kana?
I mean, I'm hopeful that it's a quick finish again, right? And then I can knock her out. Another a KO instead of a TKO. But you never know. I've seen so much growth and evolution on her part that she's done since the last time we fought. That I think that she learned so much in the experience against me that it's helped her in preparation. So I think this is going to go into the second or third round before I actually finish her.
Do you put any pressure of like need to get a finish or anything just with the points? Like obviously you got the 3 points or like the earlier finishes, you see the girls ahead of you with three of them have six. Like, do you put any pressure to get a finish? Or do you think like a win will probably be enough to get you in there?
No, I definitely put pressure on myself for a finish, not just because of the points. I mean, of course, the PFL that point system gives you a sense of urgency to have to finish in the first round. That's absolutely there, I think, for all of us, and that was really evident with what the women did in the first round of the tournament. So it's there, of course, but then also just for myself, I don't want to get decision wins. Like I've made it such a staple in my career since leaving the UFC to try and get finishes that I put more pressure on myself because of that, but certainly added pressure because of the score system with PFL.
Do you like the scoring system? Like I've talked to some fighters that have gone over PFL. Like a lot of them do like it, some don't like it. Like, what are your kind of thoughts on it?
Yeah, I do like it because I feel like so many people kind of have that safe style where they play it out and they just want to get the decision win and they play safe all the time. You never really get to see them push themselves or tire out. I love the concept of giving us that sense of urgency where everybody's in there gunning for each other, trying to finish with everything they have. That to me is a lot more exciting fights to watch and more exciting possibility knowing that that person is really trying to take my head off.
And then say you do get in the playoffs, like is there a preference or someone you'd want to fight, like whether it be the finals or in that semifinals? It's just kind of whoever you get matched up with.
Yeah, I just want to get to the finals. That's all I care about it is getting that opportunity to go for the belt. That's the only thing that matters. I don't care who it is in the finals as long as I'm there.
I think when it got released, I think a lot of people thought you and Talia would just kind of be the favorite just because of your experience. Like, did you kind of think that would be the case where like you two would be the favorites going into this season?
No, I definitely thought that Dakota would be a favorite for sure, just because of she was the European champion. So in my mind, she's already built a rapport with PFL, with the fan base, with the staff, with the organization. So in my mind, she obviously works towards to being a popular one. And then of course with Santos, what she did, I definitely thought that she was going to be one of the popular ones as well. So I really thought it'd be up to those two and less myself being in the mix with them.
The one change with PFL is the no elbows though during the regular season. Has that been hard for you to kind of not have to do or like kind of make a point where like, oh, you get someone on the ground, you can't be throwing those elbows?
Yeah, it's definitely made an interesting aspect for training wise, right? Because there's just the instinct of things that over 14 years of fighting, it's been a part of who I was. And now I get to those places where I'm like, oh yeah, guys, I'm not gonna put on my elbow pads. Or it's like, why not? I'm like, because I'm not allowed to throw elbows. So I can't put on elbow pads. And we get there and we're, like uptrain partner, like, hey, you should elbow there. I'm like, oh, I know, but I can't. So it's definitely put a little bit of glitches in certain things, but at the same sense, that's also great because it allows me to think through situations and to better improve and work on more evolutions and not just work for muscle memory for certain things.
You're still at a high level, like, but have you thought like how much longer you have? Like, you've obviously still like on an incredible winning streak. You're still in the season, but has that been a thought of all? Like, how many more fights, how many more years you still have left?
Just when you guys asked me, and I feel like if it was a guy, it wouldn't be the same questions. I feel like the females are the only ones to get questions like that. And if I was on a losing streak, I could definitely understand it, but that's not the case. I'm coming out stronger, faster, stronger than everybody else, smarter than everybody else. So there's no reason for it to be on my mind.
Say you do win PFL, like what do you think that does for your legacy? Like PFL, Bellator champion, like you fought for the UFC title, like to kind of have all those accolades. What do you think that does for your legacy in this sport?
I certainly hope that, if I decide to ever open up my own school, that holds a lot of bearing for bringing in students and them having the respect level for, because oftentimes when it comes to women, you see male dominated schools, even if the person that's leading it isn't a great coach, they have no accolades from their experience from competing, but they're just a guy and they have a good rapport, right? And then you see a female counterpart that has all the accolades, a great teacher, and they don't really have students just because they're a woman. So I'm hoping that would be different in this dynamic, and that can certainly apply. But I'd also really like to, within PFL, close out this season with that 125 belt, and then segue into next season getting a 135 division going.
Just last thing is kind of want to build off that. Like, do you think like is there still a party that wants to keep defending that Bellator belt, or like kind of after the season ends go back to Bellator? Or do you think like your PFL from here on out?
I think, there's been a lot of talk about what was going to be the future of Bellator. And my understanding is there isn't going to be a long run for Bellator. So I don't think that after this season, there would even be the possibility to do that. So in my mind, it's just sticking with PFL and everything they're going to offer and really pushing to get that 135 division going.
Is that cool then for you? Like to be that final Bellator champion? Like when
Yeah.
like you're the final one to ever hold that belt?
Yeah, big time. Like closing out that chapter, that stamp is I'm the last face for Bellator females at 125. Absolutely. That's like definitely a good closure to what it meant to be in Bellator, and then a good way to segue into opening up with PFL.
Well, Liz, that's all I have for you. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we're joined by PFL's Talia Santos here ahead of her upcoming fight. Talia, how's it going?
Tá aqui com a Thalia Santos, do PFL, pouco antes da luta dela pela segunda fase do GP. Como é que você tá, Thalia?
Tô bem, tô me sentindo super bem, treinando bem, pronta para próxima batalha.
Yeah, I'm feeling great. Training has been awesome. Everything is good. I'm ready for the next battle.
Before we get into this one, I just want to quickly touch on that last fight, like PFL debut. Like, were there any nerves or anything? Like, just switching from the UFC, like on that losing streak going to the PFL, or like what kind of were the nerves like going to that last fight?
Falando da sua estreia, né? Como que estava a sua cabeça vindo, né, do UFC e de 2 revés seguidos, né? E tá entrando na organização nova, onde tudo é novo, né? Como é que estava a sua cabeça em relação a isso?
Eu trabalhei bastante o meu mental, né? Trabalhei muito o meu mental, o meu físico, mas principalmente o mental para chegar lá e fazer acontecer, né? Tô grata pelo PFL, pela oportunidade, então eu fui muito convicta de que eu iria sair de lá com a vitória, e nada menos do que isso. E foi o que aconteceu, eu cheguei lá, dei o meu sangue e trouxe a vitória.
Yeah, after leaving the UFC and moving over to the PFL, a lot of the work that she did was on the mental side of things. Just getting her head in the right place, and that is a major thing when you're moving, from one organization to the other. You're kind of starting from scratch, so she had to get her head in the right place, and that's what she did. A lot of the focus for that first fight was just getting the mindset in order.
And with the PFL, like just with the way the regular season works and needing finishes, like did you have to change the way you fought, or like your mental attitude going into a fight, like needing finishes rather than just like having to go the distance where like it was just the win that mattered in the UFC?
Considerando a estrutura do PFL, né, principalmente nessa primeira parte, que você precisa nocautear ou finalizar, né, para conseguir passar na frente da fila. Isso mudou alguma coisa na forma que você se preparou, na forma que você veio pensando na luta, comparado com o UFC, onde, né, o jeito que a passe não importava tanto quanto só a vitória?
Isso é até legal, é um ponto legal do PFL, porque já faz os atletas entrarem mais pilhados, né? Aquele negócio, eu preciso ir dar meu sangue agora, fazer tantos pontos, que muitas vezes a pessoa começa a manter uma luta morna, só marcar, fica na distância, né? Não busca fazer acontecer. Então, isso foi um ponto legal. É como se eles tivessem colocado a gente numa fogueira ali, porque, né? Isso mexe também com a cabeça, né? Então, o atleta já entra, né? Pensando em vencer no primeiro round, pensando nos pontos. Eu achei um ponto bem bacana.
Oh, I really love the PFL structure, just having that fire under your butt that you gotta do something different, you gotta get the finish, you gotta get a knockout or a submission. I think it changes the dynamics of the fight quite a bit, because who knows, even if you get 2 wins, just playing by the rules, getting a decision, you might not be able to move forward in the tournament. So you really have to get a finish at some point. And I think that makes for a more entertaining product for the fans, and even for us, it is a little bit of a different experience.
And your opponent here, in Jenna Bishop, like, what did you make of her regular season fight? Like, scoring a first round submission, like undefeated, has been looking good. It's like, what have you kind of made of her run so far?
Imagino que você tenha acompanhado, um pouco da sua oponente, a Jenna Bishop, e ela tá vindo numa sequência legal, né? Tá invicta e ganhou também no primeiro round na fase anterior, né? O que você tem a dizer sobre ela, sobre a carreira? O que você observou dela?
Estamos analisando, né, os pontos fortes dela, também vi a luta dela ali no GP, né, inclusive ela lutou, né, ela já lutou com a menina que eu lutei na minha primeira luta, né, então a gente está analisando, vendo os pontos fortes dela, né, os pontos que ela pode querer impor na luta, né, creio que ela irá buscar uma luta de solo, uma luta agarrada, que é os pontos que ela mais mostra nas lutas dela, né? Então, tô bem focada. Tô preparada e a gente vai estudar para impor o nosso jogo nela.
I'm very focused in imposing my game on her, not necessarily be reactive to her game. We know what she does. It's very clear where she wants to take the fight to. She's a great grappler. The rest of the game is improving, of course. She's working hard on it, but I think I have an advantage on a few things in the fight department, and even where she's very strong, I think I'll be able to hang with her. So we'll see. Just gotta take the fight as it comes. I'm ready for anything and everything, and I'm gonna come out there with my arm raised.
Do you feel like there is a lot of pressure on you going into this tournament? Because I think when the names got released, like, I think everyone kind of assumed you would be the favorite to win it all. Like, is there a lot of pressure where people are expecting you to be the one that wins this whole thing?
Você acha que tá tendo muita pressão em cima de você? Porque logo que foi anunciado, né, o GP, quando saiu o seu nome, todo mundo falou, opa, né? Acho que a Tayla é a favorita para ganhar o negócio inteiro. Essa pressão muda alguma coisa para você, ou você não tá sentindo ela, ou como é que tá isso?
Não, eu tô tranquila. Eu sei que eu sou uma atleta que tem um potencial grande dentro desse GP, né, que está sendo também citada como favorita, mas, como eu falei, é um mental, né, e eu trabalhei muitos anos, eu sou uma atleta desde criança, né, eu creio que eu sei que eu vou ser uma pedrinha no sapato dessas meninas, né, e é para isso que eu vim para pegar esse 1 milhão, para chegar na final, então não tem peso, não tô sentindo esse peso, eu tô tranquila, eu tô indo para fazer acontecer, mostrar quem é a Tayla e mostrar o meu trabalho.
Yeah, I don't really feel an extra pressure or anything. Like, I've been doing this and competing and training since I was a kid, and every event is very important. So it comes to a point where, okay, this has a big price tag attached to it, but it's still another competition, And I fought some of the best in the world, and I know that I'm gonna fight some of the best over here too. But everything is just within normality to me.
How do you kind of see this one playing out? Like, do you think just a win is enough? Like, 6 points, obviously a lot right now for the standings, but do you think like you need a finish to advance and get to the playoffs?
No momento, né, você tá com 6 pontos e tem mais algumas meninas com 6 pontos também. Você acha que você precisa conseguir um nocaute, uma finalização para conseguir avançar, ou você acha que de repente só uma vitória simples já seja o bastante?
Eu entrei nesse jogo para ser a número 1, né? Então eu vou entrar para vencer a luta no primeiro round.
Yeah, I'm here to be number one, and I think leaving an impression on this fight is going to be important on how we move forward with things. Getting a first round finish, I think, sends a message to the division. That's the goal. I'm going to be there. If that's how PFL plays, that's how we're going to play. We're going to go for the finish from the first second of the fight.
There's still a lot of names you haven't fought in the PFL, like Liz Carmouche, Dakota. Like, is there someone ideally you'd like to fight in the finals, or just kind of whoever it is when you get there?
Tem algumas atletas, né, que você mencionou antes, dentro do PFL, mas tem alguma em específico que de repente você gostaria de fazer a final? De repente a Dakota ou a Liz Carmouche?
Como eu falei, o meu interesse é chegar na final, né? Eu vou vencer essas lutas para chegar na final, mas eu gostaria muito sim de lutar com a Dakota.
Yeah, the goal is to get to the finals. It doesn't matter who I face before that or even who I face at the finals. I'm ready for anybody. But I think Dakota is the one that I really want to face just because of everything that is going on. I think I might be the one to give her a little reality check.
With PFL having to fight so often, like, do you change the way you train or how you structure training camps, having to just be ready to fight like just a couple weeks after again?
Considerando o jeito que o PFL é montado, né, você tem que competir relativamente rápido, né, entre uma luta e outra. Isso afetou o jeito que você conduziu o seu camp ou não?
Não, eu gosto desse estilo, né? Como eu comentei, eu sou uma atleta que eu gosto de se manter num ritmo de treino, eu gosto de manter uma boa alimentação, né? Eu fico chateada quando eu tenho muito espaço de tempo, porque daí a gente não tem luta, fica comendo besteira, fica sem treinar. Então eu gosto quando eu tenho já uma data, um objetivo, e eu fico me mantendo a minha alimentação, mantendo meus treinos, às vezes num ritmo menor, mas mantenho o treinamento, mantenho a alimentação. E eu super tranquilo.
Yeah, not much has changed. It's mainly like for me, it's great to know when I'm fighting again because that's the biggest problem that I've had before with UFC was just not knowing. We'll be there, okay, always being ready, always being in shape, but a fight offer could come within like 6 weeks, sometimes even less. So this, is not very good for, like you're not going to be 100% if you find out that you're fighting on such short notice. But this time, with the way the PFL is structured, I know that every time that I'm there, I can, adjust my camp if needed, but I'm going to be there at 100% because I'm going to have the time and the awareness of, how the scheduling is going to be so I can be my best by the time I step in the cage.
Just final thing, like, what does $1 million do for you? And if you become the champ like that, what do you think that does for your legacy as well? Like, you obviously fought Shevchenko for the UFC belt. A lot of people thought you won, but to finally be that world champion, like, what would that do for your legacy?
Agora, em relação a se tornar campeã dentro do evento, né? O que você acha que isso faz para o seu legado, né? Ganhar esse cinturão e o dinheiro que está envolvido também, né? Sendo campeã. Você dentro do UFC, fez coisa pra caramba, lutou com a Valentina pau a pau, muita gente disse que você ganhou, mas o que você vê de diferença nessa situação que você está agora, né? O que ganhar o cinturão do PFL significa para a carreira de Taila Santos?
Representa muita coisa, né? Principalmente uma coisa que eu sempre levo comigo, que eu não quero só vencer, né? Mas eu quero saber que eu tô sendo exemplo para outras meninas, para as mulheres, para as crianças que seja, né? Mas não é só vencer, mas é o que eu vou deixar, né, para essas pessoas, o exemplo, quantas pessoas que eu nem conheço que estão ali vibrando pela minha vitória, torcendo por mim. Então eu sei que essa vitória, pegar esse cinturão, pegar esse 1 milhão, isso vai inspirar muitas pessoas a serem melhores. Pode não ser pessoas esportistas, mas elas vão querer ser melhores na sua área, né, no seu trabalho, melhores na sua família, vão começar a fazer alguma coisa. Então eu sei que essa vitória ela vai respingar para as pessoas, ela vai explanar algo de bom na vida das pessoas.
The big thing is that end of the day is not just about me. We are public figures, and I know that win, the way that we carry ourselves, and how everything's developed has an impact on the people that are watching and on the people that are following the sport. So end of the day, that's the big thing. Like, I want to give a good example to all the kids out there that are watching, especially all the girls that are watching and seeing that, hey, this could be a path. Or not even if you're in the sport, just know that you can do it, know that you can reach the top of whatever you're doing. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that I want to leave behind, once I'm done, is that I've shown people that, or at least I was able to be an example for people of, perseverance, and and you can get to your dreams if you do the work, and you follow the right things.
Well, Talia, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much for doing this.
Obrigado, Tela, pelo seu tempo. Obrigado aí pela entrevista.
Obrigada.
Eu vou te mandar o próximo link aqui, tá?
All right, we're joined by UFC bandweight Brady Houston, who's back in action on June 15th. Brady, how's it going, man?
Dude, living the dream. Back in action, ready for a fist fight.
Yeah, been a bit since we saw you, like April last year. You were supposed to have 2 fights. I know you had to pull out of the one because of staff. Like, what kind of was the reason for this long of a layoff then? Like, was it just the staff that kind of kept you out?
Staff was the first one. That one was pretty bad. I had to go to the hospital and everything like that. So that was pretty crazy. It was my fault for travel. I was traveling and training a lot. And so, different guys, different area. I was in Salt Lake City. I was in Salt Lake City for Mike's fight. And then I was down in Vegas training with a lot of those guys. And yeah, so I got a really bad staph infection. And I think the travel kind of made it worse. And so I literally couldn't even train the last 3 weeks of camp. I was in the hospital and doing that stuff. So the doctors pulled me for that one. And then I tore my knee, and my knee locked into place. And so they had to do a surgery for that second fight. So just a little bit of bad luck, but this camp's been good. Everything's smooth. I've been taking care of my body. I've been making sure wrap myself in bubble wrap every morning before I go to training sessions. And yeah, so I feel ready to go.
How difficult has that been, just having to almost another full year off for you?
It sucks. Yeah. I want to be active. So, after this fight, that's the goal, is to get at least one more fight in at least this year. I want to get maybe 2, and then just keep the ball rolling. I want to be a consistent fighter. I haven't shown that I've been able to fight more a bunch over and over again, but that's my goal. And that's what I'm going to show after this point.
And then having to pull that last one, it was going to be in front of the fans for your first time. Did that make it more difficult too? That that was going to be your first kind of real fight in front of fans in the UFC?
Yeah, that was a big bummer. I wanted it to be in front of a crowd. This is going to be my 6th fight in a row at the Apex to include Tough. So I love the Apex. I love Vegas, but I want to switch it up. I want to hear the roar of the crowd, and I want to entertain.
With Garrett Armfield, how familiar were you with him when you got the call to fight him?
I was a little bit, I had heard that he said my name in a podcast or something prior. And then obviously we have the same manager, but I met him in the sauna 2 days before they sent us the bout agreement. He was cornering one of his guys, Miles John, and I was down there just training with Marab and those guys. And so we saw each other in the sauna. I heard he called me out. We talked about how a lot of MMA pages were wanting that matchup. And I'm like, dude, I'm down to fight. And he's like, I'm down to fight. And so literally the next day I went and talked to our manager, and I was sitting him down. I'm like, okay, I'm ready to fight. I'm recovered from surgery. Who's on my radar? Who can I fight next? Who's in Brady's spectrum of possible next fights? And he started listing guys, and he said Garrett Armfield. I'm like, why don't we just do that one? I know he wants to fight. Everyone's a bunch of pages are saying we should fight. Dude, let's do that fight. And he messaged Sean, and the rest was history.
And then what have you made of the UFC run? Stepped up on short notice to fight David Onama up a weight class, and drop him back down to bantamweight, 2 wins, beat Brad Katona last time out, which was a good win. He's a top winner. It's what he kind of made of his run.
Yeah, no, he's definitely done good stuff. That short notice hop in, that kind of sucks. No one wants to be going in on a week's notice and fighting up a weight class. That's takes some balls. So good on him for that. Brad Katona was a good win. I don't think the other guy was super tough, but the way he was able to finish it was pretty impressive. So I like this guy. I like that he's making me a good fighter. He's, I always do better when I'm a little bit afraid of my opponent. And the fact that he's got good wins over tough guys and got some good knockouts makes me afraid, and so it makes me train twice as hard.
Where has this camp been mostly? Because I know you do stuff out west, like the Northwest. I know sometimes you're in Vegas. Like, where is kind of the bulk of this camp been?
Yeah, so I was training on Vegas for a little bit, but majority of the camp's been up here in Spokane, my home. I bought a house up here, and so this is where my team is. This is where my family is. I have guys come in from like Lewiston over there in Idaho, and then Seattle, and even one guy from the bare knuckle champ from Montana, Great Falls. So I've been having guys fly in, but it's all been here in Spokane, homegrown.
With this one, like, how do you think you match up against Garrett?
I like the matchup. I really love the matchup. I feel like it's very similar to like my last two fights in the UFC. It's, a good boxer with crisp hands, power, and then so it's pretty much just another version of that. I'm sure he has good wrestling takedown defense. I'm sure he has decent grappling. I mean, he's in the UFC, but his primary weapon is his hands. Doesn't throw a whole lot of kicks, just a lot of good, like, crisp boxing. And so that's very similar to my last fight against Dana. I think Dana had more power and Fernie, but I think Fernie was a little bit tighter. This guy's a little bit more fluid and loose, but all variations of each other. So I'm ready to get after it.
Do you think the Apex favors you just with the smaller octagon, like being able to close this a lot quicker for your wrestling?
Yeah, I definitely don't hate it. If I want to wrestle, I think it's a little bit easier just because the guy's right there. You can't run away. I like that, like where it's like we're in a space. We're in a fight. You got to know where to go. And I think that's where the Apex makes the action happen.
How much confidence did your last fight give you? Like, I know on the scorecards, they had you down 2-0. Like, it was a pretty close fight. Could have been 1-1, but just kind of like overcoming that and getting that third round finish and knowing like you still have that ability in the third round. Like, how much confidence does that give you going forward?
It gives me a lot of confidence. Like, I thought I won the first. I guess it wasn't like my movement didn't look as intimidating, but I dropped him at the end of the first round, and I think the judges didn't see that or something like that. But it gives me a lot of confidence because that third round is how I fight in the gym. That's how I am a fighter. I don't think I've showcased what I can do to the fullest ability. I think I've only fought at like 50% of what I'm capable of in all my fights. But I think that third round really showcased what I can do. And so once I'm able to just flip the switch, and that's me all the time, I'm a top 5 fighter in the UFC, if not the champion. So I think this is going to be a coming out party. I think I'm going to show what my level of striking, what my level of fighting is, and just my endurance and all of it together. But yeah, I've always known I'm a dog. No one's going to stop me. Like, if you got to put me out, you literally got to kill me in their cage for me to stop. I'm not going to stop coming forward. I'm not going to stop getting in your face, and I'm not going to stop trying to finish you.
How do you kind of see it playing out then?
I think I just wear on him. I think I go out there and I think I can land big shots. I think he's going to be surprised at how good my striking is. Obviously, my grappling's always there, but I think he's going to be surprised of how I mix it up on the feet with my hands, with my kicks, all that stuff. And then I think I break him in the second.
What do you think a win here does for you? Like 3 in a row, bantamweight is like super deep, obviously, but like where do you think that kind of puts you in the division?
I think obviously it's going to put me in a good position. I know, like you said, bantamweight's deep. I think I'm going to need one more win after this to get to that top 15 slot. I think I go win this one. Maybe then they give me a tough guy, hopefully on a pay-per-view in front of a big crowd. And then I put a showcase there, and then it's off to the races. Then I'm up in the top 15, and I'm making big moves, hopefully collecting some bonuses along the way.
For you too, like I know most contracts run 4 fights. I don't know, Tough's a bit different. Like, have you already re-signed then? Because this is your 5th fight now, I guess, in the UFC.
Technically, this will be my 3rd after Tough.
Yeah, because I guess the Tough final doesn't count, right? So I guess that
is
my 4th.
And we have a big contract. It's like 7 fights. Too.
Yeah, because figured I know Tough was a bit different, but if you get 3 in a row, like maybe you can renegotiate.
That is a thing. We talked about that with my manager because I think other guys on Tough have like that are on like the same trajectory as me have got off and then re-signed after 3 wins. So I'm hoping that's like the case, and then we negotiate a little higher, especially once I get like a big win. I think if I go out there and I showcase what I can do, I can get maybe a bonus and definitely a new contract.
What is kind of the goal then for you this year? Like you said earlier, you want to be active, especially having that like almost a year off. Like, what is kind of the goal?
Well, this is my full-time job. This is all I do. I don't do anything else. I teach a little bit of privates on the side, especially because it's the year layoff, but this is all I do. So I want to fight. I want to fight as much as possible. At least 2 more times this year. At least 1 more time. I want 2 more times. That's a big, tall order to ask, especially since we're already halfway through the year. But yeah, I just want to keep fighting. I'm getting better. Even with this year layoff, it's not like I was out partying or doing my own thing. It was like I was in the gym every day, twice a day, getting better, crisper hands, better grappling, stronger, faster, just better all around. So I'm just ready to go out there and showcase and put some shows on for the fans like I always do.
And like being 25, like I'm born in 1999 too, so like you're kind of just growing all the time too. So like how beneficial do you think that is? Where like fighters may not like a year off, but a year at your age, like you kind of grow leaps and bounds.
I think that's what people like, especially like maybe Garrett and his team are don't realize. It's like when I fought on Tough, I was literally 21 years old. I was like a kid, and I feel the difference now. I feel like I'm becoming like a man. I'm not even in my prime. I still got like 2, 3, 4 more years till, seems like the prime age for fighting is 30. So I'm like, I still got 5 years till I'm like in the middle of my prime. And I feel the difference. I feel like I'm growing into my body. I feel like my skills, I feel like I'm sharper. So everything's changing. I think this year layoff, everything happens for a reason. So maybe it was the best thing for me.
You said this is full time for you now. I know you're doing a bit of the volunteer firefighting. Like, is that done then? It's just fighting for you?
Yeah, I had to take a step away from that after my last fight, just because it was so hard to maintain all the training and stuff like that. I love all the guys. I still message them. They message me. But yeah, I'm just focusing mostly on this. I gotta grow my brand, grow my skills, and just live the life of a fighter. And that's what I'm doing now.
I guess next fight though, hoping in front of the crowd, like bug your manager a little bit to get you on one of those cards in front of crowds.
For sure. I don't have much leverage right now. I haven't fought in a year. So once I get a win, once I get a highlight reel, then I got some talking power. So after this fight, I'm definitely gonna be bugging my manager, bugging Sean Shelby, bugging the UFC.
And then obviously a close friend of yours is Michael Chiesa, got that big fight against Ferguson. How exciting is that for you?
Dude, I'm pumped for that one, dude. This is like 5 or 6 years in the making. He was supposed to fight him a hell long time ago, and now they're finally doing it in Abu Dhabi, which is great. I think this is the best fight in the division for Mike, and so I think it's gonna be a good bounce back for him. I think he's gonna come off that 3-fight skid, and then he's gonna go make big statements after this.
Would you want to share a card with him? Like, I'm not saying Abu Dhabi, but like, is that kind of a goal, is to be on the same card as him?
One day, that'd be sick. It would be sick if because we got some good fighters up here in Washington. We got Chase Hooper, we got Terrence McKinney, we got Chiesa, even Misha Tate's from Yakima. It'd be cool to make like a Seattle card or even a Spokane card, but definitely something in Washington, and then we get all of us fighters on there.
Yeah, because even when they did that Vancouver card, I thought there'd be more of you guys, like just how close Seattle and Vancouver is.
I thought so too. I was looking at that and I'm like, oh, we could get on that card, but none of us did.
Well, Brady, that's all I had for you. Thanks so much for doing this again. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Thanks for the time.